and welcome back to another edition of the Sustainable Scoop. My name is Nailis Castillo, and joining me today is Paul Friedman, the Executive Director and founder of Safer Country. Today, I'm going to be talking about a very important subject that has affected everyone in this world, and it's gun violence. Welcome.
Hi there. It's great to be here.
Safer Country, that's an optimistic slogan. Tell us what made you start this organization and what does Safer Country mean to you?
Well, thanks so much for inviting me on this program. And let me say, Safer Country is our name. Our sort of slogan or our mission statement is keeping guns out of unsafe hands. And we chose Safer Country because we all want a safer country. And we have been faced with the tragedy of some 40,000 people a year being killed by guns in our nation over the last number of years. And it's out of control. We can get a handle on this. We can reduce gun violence. We can reduce gun deaths in America. More people have to participate. That's why I got involved and created this organization. Briefly, my background is that I'm a lawyer. I've worked in politics. I've worked for nonprofits, and I was invited to help the families of the victims of the Virginia Tech tragedy from 2007. They had a nonprofit, and in 2016, I became the executive director of that group. I worked with them in a number of ways and found that I could do more in a broader political sense by creating a new organization. And with their support, I decided to create Safer Country. And it's critical, of course, that we confront this difficult issue, but it's very personal for me and for so many other people because I actually lost a relative. She was killed in a attempted robbery, attempted burglary in her hotel many years ago. Many of us have connections directly or indirectly to this kind of violence, and we need to stop it. We need to end the gun violence in America.
So let's talk a little bit about the red flag law. Not many people understand the concept of de-escalation. They see these laws as an infringement on their rights. Can you explain the law?
Yes, I'm pleased to do that. De-escalation is in the news these days more and more because we're concerned about the way the police interact in certain communities. Um, we've seen the many instances where the attempt by the police to deal with the situation has gotten out of hand rather than lowered the temperature and reduced the danger. Well, trust in the police is a critical element in our society. We need to redevelop that, and we need new rules. We need new approaches, new training, and new ways in which we work with our police departments to make that possible. The red flag law, which it's commonly called, is really a law about creating a new protection order. It's an order by the court that would allow law enforcement to remove a gun or guns from a home where the individual living in that home and having access to that gun is considered to be a danger to themselves or others.
My is what changed in Virginia on red flag?
Well, yes. So we're this past year we became, I believe, the 19th state or the 18th state. New Mexico also passed it this year to have this law. And the law, basically, as I was trying to say, it allows either someone in the public or law enforcement itself to intervene. It brings their attention to someone who they consider to be, that law enforcement considers to be a danger to themselves or others. If they make that assessment, if an officer were to interview that person and assess that person that way, they can then go to a judge, make a case to the judge, either electronically or in person, that a gun should be removed from that home. And if the judge agrees, that protection order, it's called a substantial risk protection order here in Virginia. just went into effect July 1st, that law. It's called an extreme risk protection order in other states. And then that order will allow them to remove the gun. Of course, if the person denies having the gun, they have to go back. Our police would have to go back and get a normal search warrant in order to, and make the case for that search warrant in order to go into the home and seek the gun. But the bottom line is that this is a temporary protection order. Very important to know that the person whose gun is removed does have a very swift opportunity to go to court and make the case that they should not have had their gun removed. That provides for due process. And that's very important because here we're taking a gun away from someone prior to them having committed the crime. It's very important that they have a swift due process in these kind of cases.
So who's leading this discussion?
Well, we have a number of organizations in the country who have been advancing this, and so we're very fortunate to have all the major gun safety organizations are supportive of this concept. Well, I can tell you that we have a broad array of politicians in America working on this. We're very fortunate to have an outstanding member of Congress here in the 8th District of Virginia, Representative Don Beyer, who's been a dynamic force on this matter, introducing legislation and working with the House of Representatives leadership, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi, to ensure that we get excellent legislation. And they've passed some very important legislation on gun violence prevention in the House of Representatives over the last 2 years. Unfortunately, it was stymied in the United States Senate. And just the reality is that the Republican majority, and particularly the majority leader, Mitch McConnell, didn't even bring this legislation to the floor. And that's not to say that there aren't Republicans who are not in favor. There are Republicans who would like to see legislation pass, and includes Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey, who at one time introduced with a Democrat a bill to improve the background check system in America. It was a compromise piece of legislation. The House version that was passed this past 2 years actually went further than that legislation. But bottom line is there are some Republicans who would like to see improvements. But, I'm very pleased to say that here in Virginia, we have some outstanding legislators who have been working on this issue for many years. In our region, in Arlington, there's Rip Sullivan, delegate who introduced, along with State Senator George Barker, the red flag law that we recently passed. But we also have in Alexandria, where I live, we have Mark Levine, and really the Democratic Party in the state, really led by the governor, Ralph Northam, who has been dynamic on this. That Governor Terry McAuliffe, who was the first statewide Democrat to be proud of the fact that he received an F rating from the NRA. So we have a lot of politicians in our Virginia we can be very proud of.
All right. What would you change to the system of obtaining weapons?
Well, the Second Amendment does protect, under the last interpretation by the Supreme Court, the Heller case, does protect the right of individuals to have a gun in their home for personal protection. And we do know that, by and large, the country supports the concept that people should be able to purchase guns. Target shooting, and in some areas of the country, hunting is very popular, and there are laws to allow that. So there are circumstances where guns are going to be purchased and used, but we have to make sure that the people who are doing that are not prohibited from buying guns legally, and are safe in the way they store these guns. There are a lot of measures we can take to reduce the threat of gun violence and gun deaths in our country without eliminating the sale of guns entirely.
So are you promoting taking away a person's right to bear arms?
No, not at all. Not at all. Our slogan is keeping guns out of unsafe hands, not out of all hands.
Mhm. Um, what would you say to the people that support these gun laws, and what would you do to counteract the reasoning?
Well, education is very important. As I mentioned earlier, the Second Amendment has been interpreted in a Supreme Court decision called Heller, and the majority opinion was written by a conservative icon, Justice Antonin Scalia, the late justice, and he articulated the many ways that gun regulations are acceptable. Uh, he articulated the fact that cities have the right to prevent guns from being brought into public buildings or in public spaces where they're threatening, and uh, as well that military style weapons can be regulated. So there are, many regulations that are reasonable and appropriate and
Mhm.
accepted even by like Antonin Scalia, who, as I say, the leading conservative on this matter. So people, I don't think a lot of people recognize that. So
Right.
education is critical.
Thank you. The law in Virginia says that you must be 18 years old to buy a gun, but you must be 21 years old to buy a vaping pen. What do you think about this?
Well, I certainly would raise the age for when people are able to purchase guns. Now, of preventing 6-year-olds from being able to buy guns, let alone so that in certain parts of the state they let young people buy guns at a very young age. Um, we definitely need to increase the age to 21. A gun is extremely dangerous, and
Um, with the new president elected, what are your goals moving forward with the new Biden administration?
for both people who believe firmly that gun safety is a primary goal of government to ensure the safety and well-being. We shouldn't be walking into theaters or walking into back when we could walk into theaters and and malls, and hopefully someday soon we'll be able to return to the life we used to have. But we shouldn't be walking into public places in fear of our lives.
Right.
And so uh, both of them will be supporting the laws that have been passed in the House of Representatives in the last couple of years that have been worked out very carefully to try to strike a balance between safety and, again, the right of an individual in their own home to have a gun for their own personal protection. It's critical that we strike this balance correctly, but we're not anywhere close to the correct balance.
As we all know, the terrible event that happened in Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, the students there were very furious and angry of everything that happened. So they decided to take action into their own hands and participate in walkouts, the letter writing campaigns, and like everything other like protests and stuff. How would you say that they were successful in achieving their goals?
Sure. Well, let me say that it was extremely tragic, of course, when 17 people were killed in Parkland, Florida, at this high school. And what's truly remarkable is the way the surviving students came together as a unit and were able to speak up so clearly and so well and so knowledgeably about the crisis that they confronted. It was truly unusual, and I think caught the country off guard to see young people who could stand up for themselves in such a remarkable way. And it caught the country's attention and inspired people to realize that they could stand up too. So they not only inspired young people, I think they inspired the whole country, and in fact, the world, to stand up and say enough gun violence, wherever it is. And I was part of the 800,000 person March for Our Lives event here in Washington. I know that it was taking place all over the world in support of our efforts here. They were so wonderful the way they were able to stand and speak at that event. Truly remarkable. And then they inspired other young people
Mhm.
right here in Alexandria to do walkouts from their from our schools. And we had some very young, bright kids here and students who were able to not only speak up, but they ended up, I believe, at the march and speaking there. So it was truly remarkable what happened. And of course, a year later, on the first anniversary of this, it was when A Safer Country was actually incorporated in Virginia on February 14th. So we're very honored to have had that date as our incorporation date. And it means a great deal to us. And I think that we all have to remain inspired and recognize that we can take action, and action can be meaningful. And they've been very effective.
How do people reach out to you to learn more about your work?
Thanks for asking. Of course, we have a website. It's at safercountry.org. And you can also find us on a Facebook page, facebook.com/safercountry. And folks, of course, if they want to reach me directly, you can contact me at Paul Friedman at safercountry.org. It was great to be on your show. I'm really encouraged by seeing how young people are taking action and getting involved in interviews like this. It bodes well for the future. So thanks again, and great to be part of this.
I want to thank Paul Friedman, the executive director and founder of Safer Country, for speaking about this very important topic in today's world. And thank you guys for watching another edition of Sustainable Scoop. Don't forget to like and subscribe.